Evening, everyone. It's Wednesday evening around 5:56 or so, and I guess this is a milestone. It's the 500th video, and I'll remind you for the 498th time that if you like the work, please hit the subscribe button. It costs you nothing, but it definitely helps support us. Okay, so today's market was pretty interesting. So far, we still don't have a president, but we did have a market that was up 800 by around noon after, as I showed you this morning, the back and forth all night for major moves. And so we closed up 367.63. That was 1.34%. The star, however, was clearly the Nasdaq, up 430.31 or 3.85. The S&P up 74 and change, 2.2. What was a big disappointment, though, was the two big gainers from the last couple of days, those being the Russell, which closed up 79 cents today, and the transports, which actually closed down 168.05 or 1.46%. What was even less impressive were the market internals, with the NYSE at 8 to 7. That's 7 down for every 8 up. That is not what you expect on a market like this. And on NASDAQ, it was minorly better at 6 to 5 up. There was actually more volume on the New York, on the losers, than there were on the winners. And in that vein, I will mention that the biggest movers in Dow methodology were UNH, which was up 33.21 or 10.3%, and that gave the Dow 216 of its 367 points to the upside. And Caterpillar, which has run up recently and been very strong, actually closed down 62 Dow points. So it was kind of interesting. Um, Better news for Uber and Lyft. As I mentioned this morning, they defeated Proposition 22 for their drivers to have to be employees and all that goes with that. Meaning that the companies would, if they had employees, would have to contribute to the unemployment fund, etc. This way, they don't have to do that. The taxpayers in California do. Anyway, Uber closed at 40.99. That was up 5.22 or 4.6%. And no, that's 14%. And Lyft closing 29.19, up 296 or 11.3%. We had a bunch of news besides the elections. ISM came in a little light at 56.6. It was expected at 57.3. The trade deficit narrowed slightly to 63.9 versus the expectation of 64.4. And that was actually done with less imports, but also less output. The ADP number came in very light. ADP said we added 365,000 jobs. It was expected to be around 600,000. We'll get that number on Friday for October. And mortgage applications fell down 3.8%. They were expected up 1.7%. On the earnings front, we had Qualcomm. Closed the day at 128.97, up 352. This is a favorite of mine. The numbers and the guidance were just blow away. So after closing 128.97, it ran up to 148.37, and the last is 146.05, which is up 20.60 or 16%. Also, in the same vein, reporting a monster number. I think sales were up 148%, but of course, you know, that was quarter to quarter, was Expedia, which closed at about it. It had moved from its high around 160 down to $41. It closed the day today 98.50. I'm not trying to make light of this. It was a great quarter, but what travel's been like. Anyway, it rallied up to 106.30, and the last is 104.40, and that's up 560 or 5.6%. And actually, uh, that's a little minor breakout over a recent high of about 105. So it's not trading there now, but it did go through that. I want to mention that this is absolutely a cautionary tale. A lot of what happened today was absolutely short covering. The number of well respected, at least by me, hedge fund managers were on this morning, and they just said, hey, we got it wrong. We were positioned for the big blue wave that everybody was talking about. And of course, not only didn't it come, but while Vice President Biden, I believe, will end up being the winner here after Mr. Trump throws every sneaky, conniving lawsuit at him that they can, uh, Biden will still win. But the fact is, they didn't flip the Senate, and they lost a couple of seats in Congress. So, that's going to mean a lot of stalemate. And that's usually good for the market because the market doesn't really like a whole lot of change. But it will also mean that stimulus and relief will be smaller. I mean, there's just no way that the Senate lets the Democrats run with $2.5 billion. And the bigger problem is that what we could do today does not compare in size to what we will need to do in the end of January when Mr. Biden can actually do anything after, January 20th when he gets in. So I'm very concerned about this market. There was a lot of short covering. There was not a lot of, as I mentioned, internal support for the market. And so, with all of that in mind, I remind everyone that we now have record numbers every day, both here and in Europe, for COVID-19. So, I'm not as concerned about um, Christmas shopping season. I'm more concerned about people who can't put together $200 or $300 at a time, who are not going to be going back to work, and things will slow down. As I said, they've already started to slow down dramatically in Europe. I mean, Great Britain, Italy, Spain, they're all closing down. I mean, they're not completely closed down, but no bars, no restaurants, uh, you know, no travel. Anyway, the chart on the screen here tonight, sorry for going off like that, but I'm actually very concerned for this market. Um, the chart on the screen tonight is the bonds. They broke through here, and I'll put a little more chart up here. We were concerned here, and last night I told you we actually had made a new lower lower low, but we were coming up to this trend line that actually goes way back and is much more visible on, well, I'll show you on the weekly. And you can see how it's been particularly well supported from here all the way up through this pullback, and we hit right on it on a weekly basis last night. On the daily basis, as I mentioned, we had an incredible range from last night down at 170.07 to up today to 175.03. That's $5 or about a 3.5 or 4% move from the low to the high in something that is as usually as staid and stable as U.S. 30-year Treasury bonds. I also see this as kind of a problem. The dollar was down today. The gold was down a little. The silver was down a little. The nat gas was down a little. The oil, on the other hand, had another rip-roaring day to the upside. I think it was up about $1.50. Yep, $1.49. And here we go with that. We've made a pretty major bottom here, it looks like. I'm sure that we're going to come in at some point because this was specifically just oversold and technical. And we are running right back into this area. I'll make it a little bigger for you. Into this area with all of the falling moving averages, with the exception of the only one we're above is the 200-day. And that has probably the worst percentage drop and movement to the downside than any of the others. So we'll see. The 5-day came down. We went through it. We came back up. This is a pretty decent move here, but I'd really be surprised if we could crack $40. And again, that COVID-19 stuff and the fact that cruise ships won't be using any of it, and automobiles won't. I mean, we just will not need a lot of energy if these economies start to close down. And frankly, I know that we've come a long way, but you shouldn't be too surprised to know that these drugs that they're talking about and all of this, really great activity comes with a problem. And that problem is the manufacture of these drugs is difficult, time consuming, and lengthy. And so, we're talking about something happening maybe in December or January. And that's not going to help a lot of people who aren't going to be able to either afford them or who have been sick before they're available, even with emergency risks. Okay, one more item. Biogen IDEC, BIIB. This is a great company. Closed today 355.63, up 108.62 on the news that it looks like the FDA will allow them to start using their new Alzheimer's drug. I mean, this is probably, this drug has been batted around a bit. It's been discussed as very strong. It was then, pulled back. They said, well, we're not really sure. Then they came back a couple of months ago and said, yes, it seems to be working. Now we're getting really serious about an NDA. So, all right, everyone. Hope I didn't depress you with all my negativeness about this market, but the fact is, I put it out in the Discord room midday that this was absolutely going to be a sell on the news kind of rally. Okay, I'll be back in the morning to bring you more cheer. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button.